Digital 410 Media proudly presents the What's the Scuttlebutt Podcast.
Yeah, so definitely for you guys, and we're going to get into with the old breed and the making of the Pacific WOW, and that's actually his pen EJ on there.
Yes,
that's amazing.
It's, it's pretty well worn, but
does it ever occur to you that these things that you have, people would just die to just remotely even have one item in their collection? Like, show everybody at home the K-bar. And I want to bring this up. In the China Marine, at the very end, when he gets home, he went to Camp Lejeune. He had to fill out a document, and they had an itemized list of all the things that you were expected to return. And the two things that he said he intentionally did not return, he listed as lost in the war, was that K-bar knife and his haversack. Did you see that haversack? Was that haversack around your house growing up? Do you guys still have the haversack? This is mind-blowing to me. That's amazing.
Can you see his name?
Yeah, it's right there, Sledgehammer.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff was, again, because of... Oh, I didn't. So you guys want to see the 45 he carried.
Now, Jeff, you're very familiar with the HBO of the Pacific, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Of course, and Henry and I were talking about this. That is the gun that Henry's grandfather sent to his father. And now, for those of you watching at home or listening to the podcast, you think, wait a minute. In the HBO of the Pacific, he was sent a revolver. And Henry and I had a very long discussion about this before we went on the air when we were doing troubleshooting.
Do not trade this. Ever. 45 will stop a Jap better than a clip in your carbine. You hit one of the suckers in the hand with that, take his arm right off. You can write your father a nice thank you note for that.
Henry was explaining to me that during the production, and maybe we should back up a little bit, but anyhow, we'll get to it. He was sending photos of his dad's stuff, including that 45. And then when he went and saw the rough cut, he was as shocked as we are now. Cause I always just assumed that your grandfather sent him the revolver and not, that was his grandfather's World War I issue, 1911.
Well, yeah, actually you are correct. It is a Springfield Armory. I have the document where my grandfather went down to Mobile County Sheriff Department and got permission from them to send this to my dad who was overseas. And I remember, I can still hear my dad talking about it. We came down the gangplank of the ship when I came home, because I'm like, Dad, do you have your helmet? Do you, what about your rifle? What about your carbine, your Tommy gun? No, we had to turn all that stuff in. But he said, when I came down the gangplank, they had a lieutenant there checking everybody off, making sure we didn't keep stuff. And he said, I had my 45, and I remember him saying, I told him, sir, this is my personal property. I have a paper to prove me. The lieutenant just waved him on.
Yeah.
We're like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes in this episode. I'm still starstruck. I'm speechless, man. I'm just enjoying it.
Not because of me. It's good,
Well, to be fair, yes, it's for who your father is, but it'd be like a Yankee fan sitting down and having the opportunity to talk to the son of Babe Ruth. You know what I mean? It's just, not to put them in the same realm, but because, and your father kind of pointed out in China Marine, he kind of feels, because he is a member of a staggering low number of men who did not get wounded or died in those campaigns from the 1st Marine Division. And he kind of mentions in here, he almost feels like it was because it was up to him to share the story, to get that book out.
Yeah.
And so, because your father is one of, let's say, 7 voices of that era, at least in the mainstream, vernacular. Obviously, there's a bunch of books on it, but we're talking about in the mainstream realm, the realm of my normal 43-year-old counterpart who doesn't spend all their time producing podcasts and reading World War II stuff. The guy who's flipping through Spike TV or HBO and sees the Pacific on his Amazon list or Band of Brothers. We're talking about those people. The fact that mainstream people who aren't in World War II know who your father is, it's kind of a big deal.
And I can't remember, we've texted back and forth a lot, Don. I can't remember if we talked about this or not, but So Sid Phillips, was my dad's best friend.
Mm-hmm. And that was on my list.
And I read, and Jeff, I heard you plug in Adam Makos. Adam's a really good friend of mine. We worked together on a lot of stuff when the Pacific came out, but I am actually reading his book, Voices of the Pacific, right now and really enjoying it. But Sid's talked to a lot. I grew up calling Sid Uncle Sid.
Not only is your father E.B. Sledge, but your uncle is Sid Phillips. I mean, that's two people
uncle,
who put two. Yes, but proverbial uncle, but yes.
Away, but it was always, Uncle Sid. I mean, I never called him anything but that. Now, we would go years and not see him. When he's busy raising his family, my dad was busy with my brother and me. So, but of course, when I did see him as a kid, I mean, we never talked about World War II stuff, but I did know that he and my dad were best friends and all of that. So, yeah, I mean, but he mentioned in Voices of the Pacific, it's actually on Valor Studios' website. There is a letter, and I never even knew about this, that my dad wrote him in sometime back in the 80s, I guess. And Sid was talking about how, we would go to First Marine Division reunions, and Eugene would come up to my room and just because he was such a celebrity. And I'm telling you, if you knew my dad, there's nothing he would have hated more. And he just would go to Sid's room and hide out. He wanted to see his buddies, but, everybody wanted to meet him and introduce him to their wives and all that. And he was he could be very well spoken and very outspoken, but just not at all self-aggrandizing,
This has been a Digital 410 production.